Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about LEGO, review those amazing bricks of plastic, and discuss what is new and up and coming within the LEGO world. I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it. Welcome in, everybody. How are we doing today for this lovely episode brought to you by LEGO and the Bricks King podcast? Of course, any other sponsor that might be thrown in here during the ad breaks. Anyway, with that in mind, today we are finally talking about that big, beautiful beast of a behemoth, the Eiffel Tower. The largest LEGO set to date, if you don't count the art, and the art designers are going to say, oh, wait. Because, the world map, which is sitting right next to me, adjacent to me, is just over 12,000 pieces. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I know it's 12,000 something. But with that in mind, it has taken some time. I had this early review from LEGO, and I am greatly appreciative for it. And it took some time to get to build it. I had family in town during Thanksgiving break, which was when it was. It was late from DHL. What is this theme with DHL? I don't get it. I live in a secluded area, somewhat secluded, but I have a state highway. If you live in Texas, you know what a state highway is. But it's not like we're way off the beaten path. We're pretty there. DHL, I must be at the end of their route, and it's always exception. Anyway, I'm done going on. Anyway, the Eiffel Tower, it took forever to build. But before I do that, I want to give you some specifications on this because it's super important to know, especially if you're looking to throw some money around. The set number is 10307. It is called the Eiffel Tower. Believe it or not. I cannot believe it. It is insanity that it is called that. It does have 10,001 pieces. Yeah, it doesn't roll off the tongue very well. It could have been 10K. It could have been 10,000. It could have been whatever else you wanted to, throw in there. 10,001 or 10,001. Doesn't come across very well. It really, really doesn't. And for you math teachers out there, 10,001, that is where the decimal point is, expanded upon in language as and. And I still remember to this day a math teacher that I had in the 5th grade, and we were talking about decimals, and I remember it vividly when I was talking about a number, and I was like, well, it's 1,000 and something like that. And she was like, no, that would be 1,000 decimal point and whatever else I had said. And I was like, oh, it wasn't that big epiphany moment. It was like, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm kidding. Anyway, 10,001 pieces. Again, doesn't roll off the tongue very well. Kind of sucks coming out of the mouth. It doesn't really work very well. Now, to a price point. This is super important as well. If you are looking at purchasing it, which it is currently available, it was available during the Thanksgiving holiday with Black Friday shopping and stuff like that, where you were able to get a GWP with it. This thing retails for $630, 630 euros, 555 British pounds. Holy crap. Seriously, holy crap. That is a lot. Now, I've had discussions with a few different people, and as far as price goes, and the thing that I keep hearing, and my own personal opinion will be included in this, that's a lot for something that is not thematic. Star Wars, we've had super expensive Star Wars sets, right? Super expensive, but it's Star Wars. You're always going to have the Star Wars nuts out there buy anything that says Star Wars, anything. Mandalorian, Star Wars, whatever. Anything along the Star Wars saga. It doesn't matter if it's $1,000. People are going to buy it. There are going to be Star Wars people lined up outside the store to be able to buy it. Day one. And then they're going to continue to sell for the next year. They just do. This, I feel, is a little bit different because it's not a theme thing. It is an iconic landmark. Absolutely. But here's my question before we really kind of jump into this. is this something that is more like if you live in Europe, Western Europe, you're around France, you're in England, you're in Germany, you're in Belgium, you're in those countries, in that vicinity to France, to Paris. It's much easier for you to get to Paris, to the Eiffel Tower, to be able to see this thing, to experience it, to visit it, whatever. Is that an iconic thing, kind of like the Statue of Liberty is here in America, in New York? I'm not in New York, obviously, but is that similar? Is it synonymous to the Eiffel Tower to the Statue of Liberty? Is it? And I don't know. And I'm curious to know. I should probably ask a few people that live over there. I don't speak French, but I do know a few people that live in that region. A number of people that live in that region. But my question is, somebody in America, maybe you've traveled to France, but for the general person that has not been there, that has not seen the Eiffel Tower, does this intrigue you? Is this something you're like, this is perfect. I think this is incredible. I need this. But why? What is the relevance to you? What is special about this to you to be able to keep this in your collection or justify the $630, which after taxes, you're well over, you're probably over $700, depending where you're at. So how does that come about in your head? Obviously, everybody's coming from a different background, a different scope, looking at this, completely different vision, viewpoint, perspective, angle, whatever. I'm very curious. So let's go ahead and talk about this thing. I've had a lot of thought about how do I jump into this? And we can talk about the model, yes. But it's one of those things that's really kind of hard to just talk about. Building techniques are really interesting in this. We can talk about that. The building process, very interesting. The broken fingers, the dead skin, the raw fingers, I think they're still recovering, honestly. We can talk about that. But let's talk about the build first. One of my favorite things about this is the scale of it. The box, by the way, comes in just like the Titanic did. It comes in one giant big box, and then you have 3 individual boxes in there as well. And then each has bags and stuff like that. It's essentially the different sections of the Eiffel Tower that you're building. It has a story to it, lots of different things. You know, there's printing on the box, there's writing on the box, all kinds of different stuff. There's even actually some notable things in the instructions, which I'm not going to go back through because it's way too many booklets. Well, it's 3, but it's a lot of pages, a lot of steps. But there's a lot of cool history and stuff that you kind of take with this as you go. Now, the base of this thing was super incredible to me when I was building it. A lot of technic, which is super important. But the model itself is not technic laden at all. There's almost none. I think there might be 0 as you continue to build up from the base. But you need that solid base. You need pins. You need holes to connect those pins in. You need long bricks to be able to keep things solidified on the base. If you don't have a strong base, this thing's going to collapse and break and whatever. And then they use road plates. They use those nougaty colored road plates from the city line, if you're not familiar. And I didn't realize this. I did not realize the Eiffel Tower had trees under it and little gardens and benches and lights. I only see this thing, you see it maybe on Google Maps. I don't think I've ever looked at it on Google Maps, but you see it in history books and stuff like that. But I've never seen it like with this eye, with this scope. I've never really experienced that. So that was kind of neat in its own right. It was a pain in the butt putting all of those individual 1x1 round modified plates that are supposed to look like flower pieces or like greenery pieces. I wanted to punch somebody in the face. I was not happy, especially when it came to doing the trees, because you have 4, is it 4 or 5? I think it's 5 because you have the top. You have plant stems, and there's 3 of those green pieces that go on each one of those. It's a lot. It's a pain in the butt, but it is neat once it's done. So a lot of repetitive stuff with that. But once you get the base done and you actually get to start building this thing up, it's kind of cool because what they have you doing is you're building essentially one leg of this thing at a time. the entire way up, really. You're building each side of this. So if you think of the 4 sides, you're building each individual column the entire way up. And then you connect your 4 columns as you move along. So the bottom section here, not the base, but the bottom section where you have your first uprights, they're really, really chunky in the way that they're built because they are the biggest part. They have to bear the weight and everything for the entire frame the whole way up, which if you don't have a solidified frame, you're screwed. There's just nothing you can do. So on all of the legs, you have, on the very bottom of the legs here, you have 4 elevators, which I didn't even realize there was an elevator in the Eiffel Tower. I didn't realize you could actually go to the top of this thing, which is wicked crazy. So you have a little entrance area, which is kind of neat, that uses the trans blue, orange. I guess it would be just the clear plates that they use here. So you're essentially walking in there, hop in the elevator, and you go up these legs. I don't know how the elevators go up the rest of the way, but I'm very curious to check it out, like online, watch a YouTube video, read something about it. So you have your legs. Each leg has a color. Well, 2 of the legs have the same color and 2 of the legs have the same color because they have you build that so you don't get confused as far as where things go. And it's a brilliant way to do it because you build, I can't remember whether you build the red or the yellow elevators first. It really doesn't matter. But you build 2 of that color, put them down. So they're across from one another. Then you build 2 of the other, put them down. They're across from each other. And then you connect it. And we'll talk about that here in a moment. But these sections are basically just made up of plates, just a crap ton of plates. Long plates, short plates, 1x1s, clips, modified clips, all that kind of stuff. You have bars that are in here. You have the piece that has 2 tiny bars on each side and then has a rounding stopping joint, essentially, is what it becomes. But you're taking these bars, you're taking these candlesticks, and you're attaching all this stuff. And that is supposed to be like the cross members that are going up each individual side of each leg, the entire way up. And as you get further up, they change. They get a little bit shorter. They change just ever so slightly. And I love the way that is done. I thought it was a really unique way to not only get the aesthetic and all those little bars and stuff don't really give any rigidity to anything. It really doesn't help with keeping this thing upright and such, but it does a really good job of, covering up what would be naked, empty space. Rock and Joel, the 2 designers here, they did an incredible job with this. And they're not the only 2. They are just 2 at the head of this entire thing. So what I found really fascinating is, yes, you have these interesting use of these candlesticks and stuff and everything. This is the best way that I can describe it. If you think of the wheel on a ship, the steering wheel on a ship, I think there's a specific name for it, but it's eluding me right now. This is essentially what this piece is that I'm going to talk about, except it only has 4 sides. You know how on a steering wheel on a ship, you have all these handles. This only has the 4 handles. And it has a hole in the middle of it that can fit a bar. Now, what they do is they use these along the top section of each section of the build. And what I mean by each section, I mean the first couple sections that you're building up. You have this base that we're building up off of the first section. And they use these pieces, again, decoration, not so much rigidity. But there is a point in which they almost do have a rigidity factor brought into it. One of the most coolest building techniques I have ever seen from a design team, from a Lego set, comes in the very bottom. The arch that is on the bottom of the Eiffel Tower. Iconic. Super iconic. One of the most beautiful things I think I've ever seen. And they really nailed it here with the design of this. So you build this section. There's 4 of them. And As you go through the instructions, you realize, okay, I'm building 4 of these. I'm building 4 of these. Each leg has 4 sides to it that you have to build to make one leg. There's 16 sides right there. But this rounded, beautiful curve that is going on, you build up with some roller coaster track, and it is kind of flimsy. You attach it from the bottom side of the first deck, is what I'll call it. And you're kind of like, okay, how does this work? What does this actually do? It looks dumb. You're kind of like, this is not going to hold. And then you take these flexible tubes and you clip them in onto the bottom of the feet of each of the legs, the first section of legs. And that goes up through along the roller coaster track. And it essentially has that upward force to be able to keep it in place, but also give it that iconic curve. It is beautifully done. And no matter what kind of picture you see, you won't understand it until you can build it. If you could take the instructions, because the instructions are out online, I implore you to go and try and build this. It doesn't have to be the dark bluish gray roller coaster track. You could get roller coaster track bricks pieces wherever, Bricklink from other sets. But try this build technique. Super impressed. Just enough rigidity there. Now, what I will say is it's not like you want to be grabbing and messing with this thing because it still is delicate to a certain degree. Clutch power only works so well, especially when you're talking about so much weight hanging upside down. But once you attach this, you slide it forward and then clip in that tube. It's beautiful. It's incredibly done. I don't know. I know they tried to get the arch and everything like that was going on in there. But to use that piece in 2 different ways to accomplish 2 different tasks with one piece, that's awesome. That is really awesome. So you have, I knocked a tree over. You have a front and you have a back that uses those pieces to help keep that rigidity in there. So I just love it. I think it is so cool. So moving up to the next deck. This is where it starts to get interesting. So if you like 1x1 round plates, you're going to love this part because it's like 10 million of them. Your fingers are going to hate you. The little ingot pieces, those, clipping in the bars, all this little decoration, the modified 1x1 brick that has like the cornice on it. It's going to drive you nuts. It looks gorgeous when it's done. But in the time that you are building it, you're going to say, I hate you. My fingers hurt. Quit it. But it's incredible. So you have that. You have some posts that go upright. And then those are essentially suspending. They are, are they really suspending? They are holding up the top rail, which is not really a rail. I've never been in the Eiffel Tower. I'm assuming this is supposed to be the roofing on a walk-around deck on that first tier. And that is holding up tiled and plated section the whole way around. What I found fascinating is I was fully expecting the next group of upright legs to somehow tie into the bottom group of legs. And they really don't. They really, really don't. And by the way, I forgot to mention this. So once you have your 4 legs attached from the bottom and then going up, before you build this separate entity of the deck and attach it, what you do is there are Technic bars. I shouldn't have said they're only in the bottom because they're hidden in here. There's a Technic assembly essentially, and then everything gets pinned in and then plated in, if that makes any sense to you. That's where your stud connection comes into play then, your clutch. Anyway, moving upward, the next 4 legs, obviously shorter, different angle. They don't have such a forward rake angle. You don't really have that here. They are slowly going a little bit straighter as we get further up on the tower. Same kind of build as the bottom legs. Really cool idea, yet again. But then you don't have the beautiful arch here. You do still use the same idea of those ship steering wheel pieces, is what I'm going to call them. So you do use those, again, along that upper top section. One thing I will tell you is when you're going about building this, and you're doing those top sections where you're putting in these assemblies that have the ship steering wheel piece. You have to be delicate because they're real easy to knock off. And what ends up happening is they fall down the leg and then you have to fish them out. And it is a mess. I hate it. I did it twice. Just not being a goof or anything like that. You just knock something accidentally and you're like, oh, crap. It's like building, I guess this is technically a model, but it's like building a true model vehicle of some kind, and you accidentally break something off and you're like, oh, crap. I have to remove the last 10 steps to be able to get in there. It's not that bad, especially since you build up the legs. You already know if I move this, I can get to it. It's not a big deal. I can clip this back in. I can attach that back. Anyway, so the legs from the second section don't actually attach specifically to the legs below. They attach to the top decking of those legs. On the inside, they're not dark bluish gray. They're different colors and stuff like that. If I'm not mistaken, there's a lot of tan in there. Red, yellow, again, helping with the building color to help you out. So those legs go upright, and then you get to the next deck tier, which I loved. I loved the use of parts here. Using the cheese slopes, using the newer slope, where it's got that nice curve to it, but it has that 1x1 spot on the bottom that can be filled by a plate, right? By one studded plate. All right, we are going to take a quick break and we will be back in a moment with some more Eiffel Tower greatness. And so you attach those, and then obviously they attach to the side by studs on the side, pieces that are used. But you go through and you're building all of these, you're attaching all these, and it looks really, really nice. And it gives you a great texture. It gives you a great design. There's something about it that just pops. And then you move up to where that observation, that walking deck around the second tier. And they used dark bluish gray hot dogs. Now, I would have to go back to New Elementary, and I didn't. I'm not sure if this is, it's not a new piece. It is, if it's anything, it's recolored. It's not new, but it might be recolored. And they use those to kind of get the curve from the outside of the deck towards the next tier of legs. I love that. It reminded me of, I can't think of the building. Is it the Empire State Building maybe? That has something like that where the caged fence goes straight up and then it curls in, for observation safety. I'm assuming that is what this is potentially supposed to be, but I love it. I love the way that it is done. So then we move up to the next section, because as we get further along, things become super important. Your elevators that we talked about in the beginning, your elevators have to be able to get up so far. And now I honestly don't know how far they go. I'm assuming they go the whole way to the top because they're in the upper top section that we'll talk about. Anyway, so this next section, I'm going to call it section 3, but it's almost like section 3 and 4. You could technically say there are 5 total sections because the top actually does come off in its own, and the rest of them come apart pretty simply. But this section that I'm going to call 3 is not just a single section of its own, because it does get attached to the section above that. So your legs, same build as we had seen before. Nothing crazy or wild there. However, the design idea that they use on the inside here to have some rigidity for the next section above it is beautiful. Again, using a lot of plates, clips, and stack, 4 or 5 plates thick. And what you're doing is you are clipping those into the second deck, and they are going to support the next section above that. So you have your upright legs that are on the outside, continuing to get straighter. And then you have these four brick built, plate built, rigid pieces, uprights that are used in here to hold everything. Your elevators are clipped into place, and they're super tiny little elevators. Clear, red, clear, yellow, clear, yellow. The whole way, you have a couple of them that are in there. You have one of each in this section and one of each in the next section as you get nearer to the top. But what is cool is those upright stanchions, whatever you want to call them, are holding up the next tier. And it's not just like, oh, this is exactly how it's going to hold. Because what they do is on top of there where the elevators are clipped into place, there is, it's that piece that uses a 2x2 brick, modified brick that has a hole down in the middle. But it has those bars assembly. You see these with like radio towers. I always look at them as like radio tower pieces, kind of like scaffoldings that are going up. And you have a few of these that are stacked on top the whole way up through the center of this section and then the next section. So those 4 legs are legs. And then on the inside, you have those 4 pieces that are the rigidity pieces that are used to be able to hold those scaffolding pieces. Now, the scaffolding pieces are a way for everything to just kind of stack on top of it, because at that point, you don't have a whole lot of other things to be able to keep as you get narrower to keep everything super duper solid, because you're getting fewer pieces. You're becoming increasingly straighter as you go up, which becomes more complex because you don't want anything to topple. So those pieces are used the entire way up. They are axled into place. Really cool. So as we move from the bottom half of this third section to the top half of the third section, which you could call the fourth, that section is not clipped into place, sat into place, and then it's locked into place by 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 2x2 tiles. And if you remove those tiles, you can just lift that off. So if you're looking for storage or movement or anything, because this would essentially be the tallest section if you were not able to remove the bottom half and the top half. It would be an absolute nightmare. You would hate it. Now, the nice thing is in the instructions when you go to transport it, which we'll talk about it more so here in a little bit, that can stay clipped together with those tiles to be able to help move it. So as we get up to the very top part of this section, you have 2 more elevators that are continuing to climb until you get to the top. So let's talk about the very, very top part of this thing, because it's small, but it is intricate. So at the very top of this thing, this section, which is fairly tiny, it might be, I don't know, it's probably about 10 inches a foot high maybe. It sits on top of another one of those scaffolding type pieces, radio tower type pieces. So it sits on top of there and it doesn't attach. There's no studs that attach it or anything like that. Now this section is really neat. They use some windows that are on the inside. Everything is dark bluish gray. But they use those latticed type windows in here on each side of the build. Each side of the build is identical, symmetrical, by the way. But again, your observation deck on the top of this has those dark bluish gray hot dogs that they use yet again because it's super important. Your very top, your aerial tower and stuff like that is, I don't know if it's a radio tower or not. I'm assuming not, but I don't know why it's a tower like this. But at the very top, you do have a little Technic piece here. It's not a tube, but I guess you could call it a tube. You can get Technic pinned in on each side, but there's nothing like in the middle. It's not like you can shove an axle through this and then clip it on the end or something like that. Anyway, but they use pail, like water pail handles for the top of the tower. The actual very, very top of it. I thought that was neat. Half of them are pointed upright or upward, and then the other half are pointed downward. I thought that was kind of neat. The flag, the French flag, is brick built, just made up of some bricks and some plates, blue plates, modified plates with the clips, and then a white brick and a red brick. Super simple, right? Nothing crazy or wild or anything like that. Now, what I will say is super light, super tiny, not anything complex. But I built this thing on my kitchen counter. I did not have enough room here, my studio working area, just not enough room, just for the sheer fact of the number of bags and everything like that, pieces in each bag. There was just too much. I needed everything laid out, and these plates to here, these plates, because everything's the same color, especially as you get further along, obviously. So this thing just sits on top. It is very pretty. It does have some arch pieces that we talked about earlier, that fairly new sloped piece with cheese wedges. It's nice. It's really pretty in the way that it is done. But what I was going to say is, when you get up to that point and you're building it on a surface that's higher than just ground level, desk level, whatever. When you're at that level, you really have to reach. I'm just over 6 foot tall, and that was a stretch for me because this thing is 5 feet tall. It is super, super tall, but it is really nice. So some of this build is unique because of the way things are attached. We talked about the bottom with the tubes, talked about the tiles attaching the bottom and top half of section 3 or section 3 and 4, depending on how you want to go through it. But it's a fascinating little build. It's not little at all. So if you're looking to move this thing around, we'll talk about bags here in a moment, but if you're looking to move this thing around, the instructions show you exactly how to do it, how to grab it. Do not grab it by the legs. If you want to cry after spending many, many hours on this, many hours on this, go ahead and grab the legs. You'll love it. You'll love the result. I didn't do it. I'm not stupid. I'm not crazy. So you essentially take these sections apart. You take the top off, just the top little tiny assembly. And then the third section that is up, counting from the ground, you take off those 2 tiles, put the tiles aside, 4 tiles, put the 4 tiles aside, and then you take that part off. Then you take the next part off, and then you have your bottom. So it's really easy to carry. Now, you don't have to take, with the third section, you don't have to take those tiles off if you're just moving it from point A to point B. Just like I moved it from my kitchen counter in here to my studio. That's all. I didn't have to take those off, but it might be a good idea if you're looking to transport it maybe further. You want to take it to a show, something like that. Then it becomes really important to do. With that in mind, the next section and the bottom section, they show you how to carry it. Carry it by the bottom. Do not carry it by the legs, especially the bottom, because it is so heavy. That base is so reinforced. It is not light in comparison. So that's how you do that. 74 bags is the number of bags that you have. Most of the building is repetitive. Build these 4 sides. Now, not every single side on each leg is identical. There are slight tweaks here and there. However, pretty much identical. So as you get going, you build the first set of leg with the 4 sides. You're like, okay, I have an idea of what I'm walking into. And it makes it pretty simple from there on out. It's just really hard on the fingers. It's really, really rough on the fingers. The time that this thing took, so I got close to where I thought it would be. I said 30 hours. I flat out said 30 hours. This took me parts of 3 days. I ended up coming in at just about 22 hours of total time building. Spent many, many hours building. So here's my thing. If you are somebody that is looking to buy this and build it, you're going to throw down to $630. You want to do it. It's your thing. You're feeling it. It looks incredible. It's going to be an art piece. You're going to display in your home. I'm not going to do that because I've got dogs, and one of my dogs, my German Shepherd, loves. As I just said that, somebody rang my doorbell. Anyway, so one of my dogs, my German Shepherd, Leo, absolutely loves Lego. Well, loves it. Why? He just likes to chew on it because he's a nut job. Just chew on it. Just chew it up. He doesn't want to swallow it, just want to chew it up. So I was like, I'm not sitting this around the house. So I'm currently looking for a spot on how I want to display it, where exactly I want to display it, what I would like to do. And I can't remember. Somebody had mentioned this to me about putting lights on it, making it like a Christmas tree. the little LED lights. We've got some little LED like wires. I think I'm going to try that. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but it is definitely something I'd like to do in the future, especially to light it, especially if you're at like a show, because this is something I would take to a show and put either on my table or with my lug and say, hey, do you want to just put this out there? It could be whatever, it doesn't matter. It can kind of scale to a certain degree, right? Depending on what you're doing. Anyway, took a ton of hours. It was a fun build. But if you are somebody that is really looking into this, my consideration for you would be this: go slow with it. I was under time constraints. I had to go. It was late from DHL. I had family in town. I had to get this thing done. And I was cruising through. I still went through and I was like, oh, that technique's cool. Oh, I love this section. Oh, that is cool how they did that. Why did they do this? This was stupid. Oh, that is really awesome. That was really fun. I don't want to ever do that again. Those were all the emotions that I went through, just in a much more condensed timeline, a much more condensed time frame than somebody else may have. You might build, 3 bags at a time. And then be like, you know what? I'll do 3 bags tomorrow and maybe 4 bags the next day, whatever. You're going to realize how wild it can be. So that is my review on it. I had a blast. I had an absolute blast building this thing. I thought it was an incredible build. Fun is a very interesting word to use here. While I don't think that it would be what I would classify as fun, it was a fun build. It wasn't something like where I was saying, I can't wait to do this again, because it was more repetitive. But that's what you get with models like this. It's not like the modulars, even though the modulars have some repetition depending, but for the most part they don't. But when you get models like this, you're going to have repetitive things that come up. It's just the way it works. It's the nature of the beast, essentially. So it was really fun building it in its own way. Cool techniques, cool idea, cool thought behind it. I appreciate the designers for what they did. It was a lot of fun. Honestly, it was really, like I said, in its own way, it was a lot of fun. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, I got to talk about the GWP with this. And the GWP was cool because you get the builder here. You get the Eiffel Tower builder here. And you get his little apartment. His apartment was really cool, except for the thing that it just had so many stinking stickers. And luckily, my mother is a much better sticker putter oner than I am. I shake too much. I just don't ever get everything right. And I've tried. I know so many of you use an X-Acto knife. I remember Jang was telling many people, use an X-Acto knife. I get it on the X-Acto knife, and it gets worse. It actually gets worse for me, and I have to go away from it. Some people use the brick separator, which you can use. Again, same issue. I need tactile touch. I know that's redundant, but I need finger, thumb to sticker to be able to eye it up, to be able to get it where I want to have that feel there. I don't have the feel with anything else. So unfortunately I don't do that, but his apartment is really cool looking. A lot of dark bluish gray. He's got 2 telescopes to be able to look out on, which are really nice. I do like his minifig. His minifig comes with gray grandpa hair. He does have his mustache and beard that he's got going on here. I don't think you can really want anything else. He does only have one face though, because obviously with his hairpiece, it doesn't go down far enough in the back to be able to cover everything. And he's wearing his tux. He's got his tuxedo going on. So that is really neat. It does have 2 windows. The outside of it is kind of bland, not the most pretty, but on the inside, you do have all of these stickers that are supposed to be, I guess, like kind of like ornate decoration that are going on in here. One of the things that I don't know anything about, part of the inside of this, I don't really know what this is supposed to be. So I'm guessing this is a model that he created of the Eiffel Tower. You have a mini Eiffel Tower that is built in here and is suspended by a brick, a clear brick. You have a little plant, a potted plant that is here on top of the, I guess, a bookcase or something like that, whatever that you have here. He does have a little desk. It's got a printed letter that is here. And then you have a little desk lamp with a chair. Now, this other thing that is in here is some kind of building. And this some kind of building rotates up and down. I'm not really sure why. Is it supposed to be the Leaning Tower of Pisa? I don't know. I tried to do some Googling. I couldn't figure anything out. And I was kind of like, well, I guess that's what it is. I am supposing that's what it is. But you do have this building that is made up of dark bluish gray that does hinge up and down. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he was trying to build something and it was falling over. Whatever. But it is a nice little build. It is a nice little GWP to go with this. And if you were lucky enough to be able to pick it up, then you already know, more than likely, and you're going to enjoy it. Now, I have seen these out online already. I know that you can buy these. Depends on the price, where you live, who are you buying it from, but I know that you can get these. So, with that in mind, what do you think? Do you like it? Do you think you like it based on my best audio description that I could give? Hopefully this radio theater gave you an idea. Go back and listen to it again. No, I'm just kidding. Go back and listen to certain parts again. Close your eyes. Try and get the idea of what you may be building. There's just a lot to it. There's not just this tiny little build that you're going through. There is a ton to this thingy, and it's not bad. It's a lot of fun to build in its own way. But I'm curious, if you are interested in picking it up, tell me why. My biggest thing when I was talking to family when they were here is telling my wife, who's going to buy it? Who is going to buy it? We talked about this in the kickoff of the show. Who is going to buy it? Are you going to buy it? Why are you going to buy it? Would you rather save your $630 and put it into multiple sets? If so, why? If not, why? I'm curious, and I would love to know, because I'd love to be able to report it back to LEGO. We always have reports to fill out just because they want to know how it did, what you thought, what the people that listen to you or read your articles think. Same thing with the brick set. When people comment on there, they're reporting that stuff back in a general sense, not you by name. But let me know. I'm very curious. Again, I kind of had fun with it in its own little way. I thought it was a lot of fun. So with that in mind, I am going to get out of here. There is plenty more to come. If you are curious about J1 releases, January 1st releases, I suggest you keep up to date or get up to date. If you're listening to this now, this is December, the second week of December. It's going to post, I believe, December 13th, 14th. Obviously, you're already listening to it, so you would already know. Anyway, my point behind that is, with all of the things coming in January 1st, there's a bunch of cool stuff coming out of here. So stick around for it. LEGO Masters is coming to an end. Finally, kind of ready to get that over with to a certain degree. As much fun as it's been, I'm ready to get it over with because it just kills me. So I'm getting out of here. Hope you have a lovely day, morning, night, wherever you are around the world. Until we meet again, I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it.